paper, before you approved, Minister Tweah, you saw the numbers. You saw the number. Was it $1? Was it $10? Was it $1 million? How much did you approve that the president should use on the trip?
Listen to me. The president has several legs of the trip. The president allowances are calculated on several different budgets, send different times, different levels of approvals because there are different legs. I wouldn't be able to. I would have to do that math and sit in all that technical detail.
Tell us about the first leg.
So
tell us only about the first leg. Let me consider. No, Minister, hold on now. Minister Tweah. Thousands of Liberians, Minister Tweah.
I don't know the line
of due respect, I got to move on to the others, guys. Thousands of Liberians listen to you, 10 of thousands of them. Minister Samuel Tweah, Minister of Finance. How much did you approve for like one? Monrovia to Morocco. How much did you approve?
Listen, I do not sit on the president's approvals and say, like, you don't do that. The president has a trip. The Ministry of State makes the request through the channels of the government. The approvals are made on the calculations are made based on what the president is entitled to, and that those budgets are paid. According to the 2016 ordinance, which we're using, besides per dimes and hotel flights, rates, presidents are entitled to daily allowance of $2,000. That's a standard calculation that the ministry uses. Ministers and heads of entities, I think, have their daily rates. So all these rates, depending on the number of days, they are calculated. The president's leave was entitled to $2,000 incidental per day. We're using President Sirleaf's ordinance. Our government, for cost consideration, even though inflation has eating up all of those costs, we still are going by the 2016-2017 travel ordinance. So these travel offices in the different entities use these calculations and send their travel request. I'm not going to sit down on a budget
we are moving on to that, Richardson, but Minister.
Yeah,
before we do that,
so it's important for Nigerians to know that there are rules by which things are calculated.
Minister, and on this show tonight, we'll be very fair and we respect our time. Chairman Ben Senvi, welcome to the show. But I will hold you on this, and Liberia should hold you on this. Liberian home and abroad should hold you on this. That you are not giving us, you as a finance minister, you are not giving us a projected amount, whether of the first leg, the second leg, the third leg of this personal trip. Are you confirming that? You are not telling them how much you signed for. You say you approve it. How much did you approve?
Stanton.
Yes, sir.
Stanton.
Yes, sir.
The Liberian budget is $784 million. The Minister of Finance signs, I think my people have calculated that, but I will check again. I don't know if we have tens of thousands of requests for payments every year. The number of requests that come to my office for approval. You are sitting here telling me that every time a minister requests or an agency requests for 30,000, 50,000, and all these things, the number of trips the president has made for 5 years, you expect for me to keep that information in my head?
I'm not asking you to give me information from 3 years. I'm not asking you to give me information from 1 year ago. I'm asking you to give me information that you signed in the month of Minister Tweah.
The line of questioning is
the president took a trip from November 1st. On the first information, they were still out of the country up to the visit in Washington, D.C. You, Minister Tweah, you said you approved the budget. You said it. Before you approved the budget, you went over the budget from like 1 to like 1 billion, whatever it will be. Hold on now. Hold on. How much did you see on the paper before you signed? Did you sign blind?
I did not see anything. That's what I'm telling you. I did not see anything.
So what did you approve? What did you approve?
Oh, listen to me. Listen, the president request comes to the Ministry of Finance. I can be in Washington, D.C. and make approvals. Okay, my office staff sees the request and they say the president's traveling to this, and my job is to make sure you have to get the president where the president has to go, accelerate the processing, and to do that. lots of paperwork, lots of things. I'm not going to be looking at all of that.
So explain the story right now. I got to move. Make the story easy for us. You are out of the country.
I don't know what. I don't know what the point is.
Minister,
I can't
Minister,
say.
We will get to the bottom of this today because Liberia want to know the truth. You were out of the country. We agree. You are out of the country, Minister. You are saying your office staff told you, and you can verbally approve these things. When you return to the country, did you go over the document? Did you go? I
don't need to. Why am I going?
So you just approved something. Are you saying you approved something that you didn't see? Are you saying you would make a document that you didn't read over?
Listen, I just told you that I don't come home and ask for all approvals and say, what are all the numbers that were approved? No. There are different budgets that the Ministry of State can send on any given travel. The per diems of all of these people, the per diem of the president,
we understand all that, Minister. We talk about this trip that took place on the 1st of November. Just tell us. You signed it. You say you approve it. Why can't you tell us?
I'm not going to take a number. I'm not going to take a number that I do. I can't call a number of head. I can't call a number of head.
I listen to you guys. We have Samuel Tweah in studio. He's the Minister of Finance. We're going to ask our question on the president trip. From there, we're going to go to the next topic. Dr. Francine Chinwe Richardson, please. Your two questions.
It appears that this is a pattern of you not wanting to answer how much money that you approved for the president's budget. On a previous show you were on, you refused to answer this question. You are also refusing to answer this question again. Do you not find that how much the president travels with is important, especially considering that Liberia is in like crisis right now with like rights crisis, corruption, and all of those things? Do you not find that's an important thing to know as a finance minister?
You're telling me that the representation the president is making, I should consider it not important. And my advice to the president should be that, Mr. President, don't go to the COP to make the case for Liberia. Don't go to Qatar, where the country stands to benefit in terms of road infrastructure and agriculture transformation. That you know, to advise the president not to go to Paris to honor international obligations. I mean, the president's one trip at some point to Abu Dhabi has landed. Listen to me.
Hold on, Dr. Richardson. Hold on, let you finish.
Yeah. Has landed you 100-bed hospital in Bapulu. The cost of that 100-bed hospital, the benefit that means to the people of Liberia, that avails to the people of Liberia, is an example of why. So Minister of Finance, no minister can ask a president not to take a trip. Yes, there are emergencies and there are challenges in the country. The president is engaged by his way to resolving these challenges. It's not like the president goes away and he's not running the country. If you're sending that picture, then that's a wrong picture to send. The correct picture to send is that the president is ably representing the country. If the president doesn't travel at all, it will be seen by the international community that he doesn't honor his obligation. And Liberians will be saying, but why our president doesn't go anywhere? Why does this president not go anywhere? What is he?
Thank you, Minister Tweah.
That would be the conversation.
To ask a second question. Dr. Richardson, please.
Minister Tweah, you did not answer my question at all. You went on a rampant with what you thought I asked you. My question to you is that this is a pattern of you not answering. What was the budget for the president? On a previous,
that is not true.
Excuse me, Minister Tweah, please give me the honor to ask my question, please. All right, thank you. On a previous show, you were asked this question and you didn't answer. You were asked, what's the president's budget? I'm surprised that you're not on TJ Maxx show when you were on ELBC. I watched that interview. You should know that we were going to be asked. Well, that's not the issue. Okay. Listen,
I was never asked this question.
Listen, okay? If you feel like you do not know the answer to how much you give the president to travel, then say that you don't know the answer, especially in the eyes of Liberians who are currently suffering that you can take any amount of money and give to the president to travel and not know how much it is? Yeah, Liberians don't have food to eat. They don't have electricity, but we can give any amount of money to the president to travel. That's what I wanted to point out here to you. But if you don't know the answer to it, you don't know the answer to it. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richardson. Kev Hassan, your 2 questions.
So I need to respond to that.
Please do. Please do.
You cannot say I give the president any amount of money. I've told you, presidents, ministers have their entitlements under travel ordinance. Those calculations are made when travels are made across agencies. Thousands of those requests are made to the Ministry of Finance. If you want the Minister of Finance to be memorizing multiple requests, the Minister of Finance is not at that level. He's not. He's not at that level of minutiae. And that's it. I just told you, the president's entitled to $2,000 every day. That's what's important for the public to know. As incidental, every day he gets $2,000 under the 2016 ordinance. When we change that ordinance for inflation, maybe we'll increase that because prices have changed. Recently, ministers have been complaining that they believe that I don't fund their travels enough because we're giving them money that is way below the cost in Washington and all of that. I have said we will stay with the ordinance for cost purposes and for challenges the country is facing. That has been my argument. That's what the Liberian people need to know.
No, that's not correct, Minister. That's not what the Liberian people need to know. The Liberian people need to know how much you approve for the president trip. But we got to move on. You just said the president make $2,000 a day. That would be $46,000. If the president was still under the contract of the 23rd, that would be $46,000. But we got to go. When?
But you're not expecting to rattle it here on the show when I have not sat to do all of that. No, the information is available, but I cannot stay on the show and call a number, and then when we make the information publicly available, you come and say, "Oh, the minister." You know, these are many people.
Minister Tweah, let's move on, sir. That's not fair. You are the minister. We've been asking for this document since the 1st of November. Eugene Lin Nangwe, the commissioner, came on the show. We asked him. We got a clip. You heard. You watched the show. Be fair to Liberia tonight because you are a Liberian. But let's move on. We got more to go. Kev Hassan, please.
Minister Tweah, Eugene Lambert came on the show and he explained it, and he said the president trip from Liberia to Morocco is free, $0. So we now know that there's 0 cents the government spent on that. So we should not be talking about because Eugene Ambe, who on the trip, including hotel, including food, all was paid for by the Moroccan government. That $0 come from the government. But one thing I want you to explain, you know, sometimes it baffles me when people focus just on what the government is spending. I want you to explain what the government of Liberia, what the Liberian people will gain from this trip. We all know the hospital in Bapolo, the people of Bapolo, Liberia are going to enjoy on that. They're going to save lives. That's a lot of money, 100 bedroom. So what I see folks are focusing on, how much the president spending. And when you look at what the president trip in the past and the gain, we know that Liberia gained from how the president from the past trip. Explain this trip. What you talk about 50 million, and I'm sure the president not using 50 million on this trip. So please explain to the Liberian people the gain, the net gain versus what we're spending.
It is an unfortunate waste of the public's time if we will spend 2 hours of this show with the litany of issues we have to discuss and fuss over the particularities of a trip number that can be ascertained maybe subsequently through a public document and where the public knows that the president has entitlement to travel and the public has to pay for that, and particularly where those costs are immaterial, insignificant to the benefits, one of which I said was the 100-bedroom hospital. So many. That hospital alone can pay for the president's trip in probably 50 lifetimes. 50 lifetimes. If the president were president every day, every year for 50 lifetimes, he served as, he lives up to 90 years and he comes 50 times. The cost of that hospital will cover that trip. All his trips that he would make over those 50 lifetimes. And we focus on Spoon discussion tonight. When you say you have many issues, to talk about that, when the Liberian people know that the president's benefits, the benefits of his trips are significantly, I mean, in millions of light years higher than the small cost that he uses to go, and the show becomes, I mean, the trip cost becomes the centerpiece of tonight's show, we waste the public time. Stanton, it's a misuse of Spoon Network. I don't
think you're right. I think you are totally
right.
wrong.
No,
the Liberian
I'm not.
So did you give the
we
president?
Can go ahead one more hour.
Did you give
just
the
this
president?
one issue?
Did you, Samuel Tweah, give the president a blank check?
The president is the president of the Republic of Liberia. Ministers don't give presidents blank check.
But then tell us, how much you approve? We're going to move on. But how much did you approve?
Yeah, we can stay on it. We can stay on it for 6 hours. I'm quite open to staying on it.
It's not an accurate thing to say that the president traveled all of the country for 7 weeks, and you can tell the Liberian people how much you approve. You are the Minister of Finance, for the sake of good heaven.
I cannot tell the Liberian people the request every day that comes to the Ministry of Finance and all that.
I'm not asking for the request from ministry. I'm asking you, Minister Tweah, how much did you approve for President Weah recent, most current trip?
I have answered that question severally.
You did it.
We can lavish the show's time on that line of questioning that is evidently not going anywhere.
Minister Tweah, this is
because the Liberian people know.
You must tell the Liberian people how much you approve.
I have told the Liberian people the facts. The Liberian people's president, the Liberian people's president is entitled to travel. He's entitled to emoluments from the trip, his per diem, his daily allowances, and his incidental, as are any member that he carry. They multiply that by number of days, and that number is there. And I'm not going to sit and be particular about this minister traveling.
Since you want to do that, how many members the president have?
Why have you not asked me why?
Why have you not asked me?
Why have you not asked me why?
I won't ask you. Why did you not ask me? I won't ask you what you want me to ask you. I will ask you what the Liberian people want
you listen to me.
Mariah,
you and I have me say something.
Mariah,
you and I have me provide a number that is not firm in my head that I have to calculate. You and I have me do that either. If that's what you're trying to have me do, when I give you a number, it means I'm going to ask a question. All of that. I'm not going to do that.
Thank you.
So it's a waste of the show's time.
I think it's a waste of the Liberian people's time that you're even on the show tonight. And I think it's disrespectful to the Liberian people who you serve, to the people whose money you use to help run government, to sit on the show tonight and refuse to give them numbers and be accountable to them in terms of how you're spending their money. And I think it's disrespectful to the Liberian people. But let's get to the questions. You mentioned the president's bilateral discussions on his Qatar trip to include road infrastructure and agriculture and other benefits. However, the president's letter to the legislature did not include any of such when he mentioned his visit to Qatar. It was specifically about the World Cup. Can you tell us who we should be believing, whether it's you or whether it's the president? And if we should be believing you, can you state for the record that the president intentionally withheld prudent information from the legislature and the Liberian people by not disclosing these bilateral meetings in Qatar as you stated on the show, or are you misrepresenting the president's visit in Qatar?
I am privy to conversations begun by the president relative to the government of Qatar. I will be making a trip very soon on infrastructure development based on some of those conversations. I have a trip scheduled this month to talk infrastructure.
This is not about your trip, it's about the president's trip. We didn't ask
I'm just telling you that the work we do follows from the engagements that the president.
So are you saying the president
with
will
the
help
external
from the legislature in his letter?
No, I am not. You cannot tell me what to say that the
I'm
president would
asking
have.
you. I'm not telling you what to say.
Mariah.
I'm asking you.
You cannot
Did the president
impute. Listen.
disclose this information that you're providing?
Do not display rudeness to me. You are a lady. You should respect your.
Can you control your guest?
Mariah, can you give him the chance that he answer, and you will come
Did
back.
you listen to him talking
I will
about?
not be disrespectful. We will address him, Mariah. We will not display any form. Will not display any form of rudeness. We are all metro, and I believe Mariah's question is not
she
rudeness.
asked the question, I will answer the question. She will not require me to answer the question the way she wants me to answer the question.
Can you please proceed with the answer, and she will come back and ask another question.
She cannot impute motives to me.
Can you please proceed? Can you please proceed?
Please don't characterize her question as rudeness, please.
Okay. Can you please proceed? We have to show some mutual respect on this program, please.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Minister Tweah.
I think you have to accord your guest the respect that they deserve.
Minister Tweah, to her question, can you answer? And she will ask another.
I've answered the question. I've answered the question.
Okay, Mariah,
I've said the president,
come with a second question.
The president is making representation. He's in Qatar and he is holding talks with the government in Qatar. That he wrote a letter saying one thing, that's fine. That's the letter the president wrote. If you stretch that and impute motives to say that because it's not on the letter and I'm saying something that I'm aware of, that the president has wonderful relationship with the government in Qatar and extensive discussions are ongoing on a number of things to which I'm privy, and then you want to impute motives to say, oh, I am implying that the president is deceiving or withholding information from the Liberian people. You have your freedom to say that, but don't impute that motive to me. It's disrespectful. It's preposterous.
Mariah, can you proceed?
I think you're being obnoxious when you sit on this show and try to not answer the questions being asked. And I'm not sure whether it's your own understanding of what the question was or your preconceived notion as to what your response would be. But I clearly asked, did the president intentionally withhold information from the legislature that you're claiming to know on the show? And the fact you've answered, let me speak. And the fact that you've not answered that question and you insist that the president is having bilateral discussions with the government of Qatar that the legislature has not been informed about, even though he did write about his trip, clearly speaks to the fact that the president withheld information from the legislature and the Liberian people as to the purpose of his visit to Qatar. And that is the information that we have. Whether you see it as imputing motives, you sat on the show and spoke about what the president is doing in Qatar when the president himself did not speak about it. So you should be asking yourself, why are you contradicting what the president wrote in his letter? My second question to you is, you sat on the show as well and said, sometimes when you're out of the country, people use your stamps to approve budgets and requests. Who are these people that are using your stamps in your absence to approve requests for money from the Liberian people?
When I travel out of the country, I have to approve payments, even though the deputy minister asks, he's acting, those approvals still run through my office and they go on to him. So when I leave the country, I'm still in charge of the ministry in coordination with the Deputy Minister of Fiscal Affairs. So all requests will come to me, the Minister of Finance office, and it's sent down to the Deputy Minister. So those approvals are made.
In your absence?
No, I have my office stamp. I have my office stamp. The Deputy Minister will require that it's approved by my office before he acts on that.
So the Deputy Minister is using your signature
That's my
stamp?
requirement. No, I have my office. I'm telling you that my office has a stamp. My stamp of approval in my absence.
So
they have
you
to see that.
So let's understand.
What am I telling them? I'm telling the Liberian people simple thing that you cannot understand. If the Minister of Finance is not in the country, and somebody asks for $10,000. Yeah, if the Minister of Finance is not in the country and somebody's agency is requesting $10,000, the minister's office will give that approval and send it down for processing.
In the absence of the minister.
That is correct. I will not hold the country's finances because I'm not.
When you're out of the country?
The approval still runs through my office and goes to the acting minister. Simple.
And so the minister. No, Stanton, this is important because this is
important, but so let me take point that.
I just want to be clear.
These are not these. What are these?
What this is doing.
We're talking about the president's trip, and the show is being distracted.
I am still speaking.
We're wasting
Minister, please.
You're talking about disbursement.
Mariah, learn the last question. You have to time. Go ahead.
We're talking about disbursement of the Liberian people's money, not your personal money. And the fact that you as Minister of Finance has to sign your signature on these requests approving them. And when you leave the country, there's an acting minister who is acting in that capacity, but you sit on the show and said in your absence, sometimes people use your signature stamp to approve requests for funding. And I'm asking you, who are these people? And you said it comes to your office and it goes down to the Deputy Minister office. Can you be clear to the Liberian people? Because what this seems as though is you exerting plausible deniability in times when a document is signed with your signature. You could say, oh, I wasn't in country and someone used my signature stamp. So can you tell the Liberian people who's authorized in your absence to use your signature stamp to disburse their money?
Thank you, Mariah. Minister Tweah.
The beauty of this conversation is that even though there is an acting minister of finance, who is the Deputy Minister of Fiscal Affairs when the minister is out of the country, what the Liberian people are learning of is that that Minister of Finance doesn't have the authority to approve without the minister knowing. So I'm glad that you're bringing that fact to the Liberian people. Because if they were the other way around, you would have been saying, oh, Mr. Minister, are you telling me that because you're out of the country and the Deputy Minister can just approve $200,000, $10 million since he's acting minister, and you would claim that you don't know about it since he is the acting minister, and so the acting minister definitely can take your power temporarily and cause havoc in the country without you knowing because that approval right has been given to him. What I'm telling you today is that when the minister is out of the country, he retains his approval right. But I'm not there physically. So we have a system in place where if Mr. Watercoley is carrying out instruction, it must reach my approval while it's going down to him to execute. In that way, I'm still involved.
So you what you want me to have done?
No, it's not. I gotta make it clearer. I've got to make it clearer. She has to understand this. What you wanted me to say was that since I'm not in the country, I should delegate the signing powers to the Deputy Minister of Fiscal Affairs, who then becomes the minister and can sign a $10 million